Kade Preston had exactly $13 in his wallet, a rusty old camera slung over his shoulder, and a 6-year-old daughter waiting back at their tiny rental apartment with a babysitter he could barely afford. The sky was fire orange over Lake Woodrow as he crouched by the edge of the dock, trying to capture the last rays of the sun for his freelance gig with the local magazine. He needed at least 5 good shots by morning. 5 shots that might pay for groceries. Then she walked into his frame. She wasn't posing. She didn't even glance at the camera. She just stood at the curve of the lake with her back to him, the wind catching the hem of her coat, her bare feet inches from the water. Her long dark hair spilled down her back like ink against the gold sky. Everything about her looked like it belonged in a painting. Or a dream. Kade's finger clicked the shutter before he could think. And then she turned. Her eyes met his startlingly clear and gray. For a second, she looked startled. Then she gave a soft, curious smile. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said, walking toward him. "You didn't." He glanced at the camera. "I was just trying to catch the sunset." "Did I ruin the shot?" she asked. He hesitated. "No, you made it better." The woman laughed, the sound low and warm. "Do you always say things like that to strangers?" "I don't usually take pictures of strangers at the lake," Kade said honestly, standing up and brushing the dirt from his jeans. "But you just looked like you belonged there." The woman tilted her head slightly. "What's your name?" "Kade. Kade Preston." She held out her hand. "Olivia Darnell." Her fingers were cool against his palm, her grip surprisingly firm. She wore no makeup and no jewelry, but her coat looked expensive, tailored, soft gray, definitely not from any store he'd ever stepped into. "You a photographer?" she asked. "Trying to be," he said. "I'm doing some freelance stuff. Weddings, events. Mostly nature shots, when I can find the time." Olivia looked at him for a moment. "You're good. You haven't even seen my work." She smiled. "I don't need to. You waited for the light. Most people don't." Kade raised an eyebrow. "What about you? You live around here." "Sort of," she said. "I'm just passing through for a while." "Needed a break from everything." He didn't push. Her voice had a softness to it, like she was used to keeping secrets. "Listen," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I didn't mean to take your picture without asking. If you want, I can delete it." "Don't," Olivia said quickly. "I'd like to see it. If that's okay." Something about the way she said it made his chest tighten. "Sure, I can show you." They sat on the edge of the dock, side by side, their feet dangling just above the water. Kade flipped through his camera, stopping when he found it. The photo was stunning. Olivia in profile, the sunset pouring around her like gold. Her expression calm, distant. Like she wasn't just standing by the lake, but like she was part of it. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then whispered, "That's the first time I've liked a photo of myself." Kade swallowed. "You look peaceful." She nodded slowly. "I haven't felt like that in a long time." A quiet moment passed between them, the lake lapping gently at the shore. Then her phone buzzed. Olivia glanced at it, frowned, and stood. "I should go. But thank you, Kade, for the photo. And the piece." "Will I see you again?" he asked, before he could stop himself. She paused. "Maybe." And then she was gone, walking down the gravel path barefoot, her coat fluttering behind her like wings. The next day, Kade was back at the apartment, flipping grilled cheese for his daughter, Josie, who was dancing around the kitchen in her superhero pajamas. "You gonna take more pictures today, Daddy?" she asked, hopping onto the stool. "Probably," he said. "If I can get this last photo edited in time." "You should take more pictures of me," she declared proudly. "I'm cuter than the trees." "That's true," he grinned, tapping her nose with a finger. "But the trees don't charge a modeling fee." She giggled, and for a moment, his world felt like it was holding together. Until his phone rang. It was the magazine. The editor loved the photo. In fact, she asked if he had more shots of the woman at the lake. Said a luxury lifestyle brand had seen the image online and wanted to buy it for a campaign. Kade froze. "Wait, what?" "Yeah," the editor said. "They said that woman is Olivia Darnell. You know, the Darnell family? One of the richest families in the country." He nearly dropped the phone. "She said she was just passing through." "Well, she passed through and made your career," the editor laughed. "They're offering $10,000 for the licensing. More if you've got other shots." Kade's head spun. He didn't know what shocked him more, that he'd taken a photo worth that much, or that the woman who'd sat beside him on the dock, barefoot and quiet, was a billionaire. 2 days later, Kade was walking Josie through the park when he saw her. Olivia, sitting on a bench near the fountain, her coat folded neatly beside her, a coffee in her hand. She looked up and saw him and smiled like she'd been waiting for him the whole time. "Hey," she said as he approached. "Hey," he echoed, heart hammering. "This is Josie?" Olivia asked softly. Josie clutched his hand and nodded. "Are you the lake lady?" Olivia laughed. "I guess I am." They stood there, the three of them, like something had quietly clicked into place. Kade looked at her, unsure. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" She held his gaze. "Because I wanted to be just a girl by the lake, not someone with a net worth." He didn't say anything. She stood. "Can I buy you both lunch?" Josie's eyes lit up. "Can we get fries?" Olivia smiled. "We can get whatever you want." And just like that, they walked off together, Kade, the struggling dad with a camera, Josie in her superhero cape, and Olivia Darnell, billionaire and lake girl. Only Kade didn't know yet that she was already falling in love with him. The restaurant Olivia chose was nestled between a flower shop and an antique bookstore on a quiet brick-lined street Kade had never noticed before. It wasn't flashy. No white tablecloths or servers in tuxedos. Just warm wood, soft lighting, and the scent of something buttery drifting from the kitchen. Josie was halfway through coloring the kids' menu with a crayon when Olivia leaned across the table, her voice low. "I didn't come to Woodrow just to clear my head." Kade looked up from his coffee. "No." She shook her head once. "I needed to disappear for a while, at least. My family's company is going public this year. There's pressure, interviews, scrutiny. I didn't want to be part of any of it." "You just walked away?" he asked. "Not from the responsibilities. Just from the noise. From being watched all the time." He nodded slowly. "I can understand that." She studied him for a long moment. "Can you? I know what it's like to feel invisible and still want to disappear." Her brows lifted slightly. "That's poetic." "It's just the truth," he said, glancing at Josie, who was now trying to draw a unicorn with a mustache. Olivia's gaze followed his. "She's bright. Too bright," Kade said. "She's been lecturing me about the nutritional value of carrots since Tuesday." Josie didn't look up. "Carrots make your eyes strong." Olivia laughed, and this time it wasn't careful or quiet, it was a full, delighted sound that made Kade's chest pull tight. "You said you needed to disappear," he said. "But you let me take your picture." "I didn't expect you to capture me honestly," she said. "Most people don't know how." Their food arrived: grilled cheese for Josie, salmon for Olivia, and a burger Kade hadn't let himself order in weeks. Olivia insisted on covering the bill before he could even reach for his wallet. Back on the sidewalk, she crouched to Josie's level and said, "There's a place nearby that sells chocolate croissants. Want to help me find it?" Josie grabbed her hand like they'd known each other for years. Kade followed behind, watching Olivia laugh as Josie tugged her toward the corner. It felt surreal, like he'd stepped into someone else's world. But when Olivia glanced back and caught his eye, something in her expression said she felt it too. After the bakery, they didn't want the day to end. They ended up at an art exhibit in an old train station converted into a gallery. Olivia knew the curator, of course she did, but didn't make a show of it. She let Josie wander between the sculptures with wide eyes and let Kade take photos freely. By dusk, Josie was asleep in the backseat of Olivia's car, curled up in her booster seat with a chocolate smear on her cheek. "I should get her home," Kade said quietly. "I'll drive you," Olivia offered. "You don't have to, I want to." They drove in silence for a few blocks. Then Olivia asked, "Do you want to sell the photo?" Kade glanced at her. "You mean the one from the lake?" She nodded without looking at him. "The lifestyle campaign that reached out. I know about it." "You knew they saw it?" "I'm the one who showed it to them." He blinked. "Wait, what?" "I sent it anonymously. Just the image. I didn't say who took it. I wanted them to see what I saw. And they did. They loved it." Kade gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Why would you do that?" "Because you deserve more than scraps, Kade. That photo is beautiful. You can't keep hiding your talent behind weddings and local ads." His throat tightened. "That photo wasn't supposed to be anything more than a moment." "But it is," she said. "It's already changed things. You just haven't realized it yet." He parked in front of his building. Olivia turned in her seat to face him. "I didn't tell them who you were," she said. "That's your decision. But if you want to license it, the contract's at my place. No strings. Just a chance." Kade looked at her for a long time. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I believe in you," she said, then hesitated. "And because I care." She reached into the back seat and gently brushed Josie's hair from her face. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the air shifted. I'll think about the contract, he said quietly. Olivia nodded once. Just don't wait too long. She drove off after he carried Josie inside. Kade stood on the sidewalk for a while, the glow of her taillights disappearing down the block. He wasn't used to being seen. Not in the way she had. Not in a way that made him feel like his life wasn't just surviving but something worth building. 3 days passed. He didn't call. Didn't sign the contract. He told himself he needed time, but the truth was, he was scared. Then Olivia showed up at the magazine office. She didn't say a word. Just walked in wearing a navy trench and heels sharp enough to slice glass, holding an envelope. I need a photographer for a private event, she told the editor. I'll pay double the usual rate. The editor blinked. What kind of event? A benefit gala. In 2 nights. Manhattan. Who's the client? I am. The editor glanced toward the hallway. Kade's out on a shoot. Tell him he's hired, Olivia said. And if he says no, remind him that real artists don't run from their own brilliance. She left the envelope on the desk. Inside was an invitation, a first-class train ticket, and a note that said only, I'll be waiting. When Kade opened it later that afternoon, he stared at the invitation so long that Josie came and sat beside him silently, resting her head against his arm. He didn't know if it was a job, a test, or something else entirely. But he knew one thing for sure. He was going. The train slid into Manhattan as the skyline glittered like a promise Kade wasn't sure he'd earned. He wore the only suit he owned pressed carefully the night before and carried his camera bag like it weighed more than just equipment. The invitation Olivia had left bore no address, just the name of the venue, the Astoria Club. The moment he stepped into the marble foyer of the building, he knew he didn't belong. Crystal chandeliers spilled light like waterfall droplets. Waiters in white jackets moved silently between guests in gowns and tuxedos, offering glasses of champagne balanced on silver trays. Everything gleamed: floors, walls, people, like the entire place had been polished just for tonight. A woman at the check-in table glanced at the envelope he handed over, then nodded to a man in a headset. This way, Mr. Preston. He was led through a side corridor, past velvet curtains and gilded mirrors, until they reached a private lounge with mirrored walls and low lighting. There, a man in a sleek gray suit held a clipboard in one hand and a headset in the other. You're the photographer? The man asked without looking up. Yes, Kade said, tightening his grip on the strap of his camera bag. You'll cover arrivals, candids during cocktails, and then a few posed shots during the donor presentation. No press access tonight. This is private, by invitation only. Understood. Kade nodded. Good. You'll find Olivia by the grand staircase when you're ready. He blinked. She's here already? She's hosting it. The clipboard man disappeared down another corridor, leaving Kade standing there with his heart thudding in his ears. He moved back into the main ballroom carefully, scanning the crowd until he saw her. Olivia stood beneath the massive chandelier, surrounded by a small group of sharply dressed people. She wore a silver gown that caught the light like flowing mercury, her hair swept up, a pair of diamond earrings glinting beneath the soft waves near her jaw. She looked regal, but not cold, powerful, but still Olivia. When she spotted him, her lips parted slightly, and for a moment, the crowd around her faded. You came, she said when he reached her. You invited me, he replied. I wasn't sure if you'd say yes. I wasn't sure either. She nodded once, then gestured for a waiter to bring him a drink. This evening's important to my family, but I didn't want a stranger documenting it. You know I'm not a society photographer. I don't need one, Olivia said. I need someone who sees things clearly. Kade took a slow breath. Is that why you brought me here? To prove a point? No, she said quietly. I brought you here because I trust you. He looked around the room. This isn't your world, is it? It's the world I was born into, she said. That doesn't make it home. Before he could reply, a tall man in a navy suit approached. His hair was steel gray at the temples, his expression sharp. Olivia, the man said, placing a hand on her arm. We're ready to begin. Kade stepped back instinctively. The man glanced at him. And you are? Photographer, Kade said. Ah, right. The man's tone was clipped. Try to stay out of the way during speeches, will you? Kade gave a short nod. After the man walked away, Olivia turned to Kade. That's Bernard. My uncle. He's the one taking the company public. He doesn't look thrilled I'm here. He rarely is, she said. He thinks emotions are bad for business. Kade raised an eyebrow. And you? I think emotions are the only thing that make any of this worth it. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of flashes and movement. Kade captured Olivia greeting donors, laughing politely at toasts, and standing with her uncle as he delivered a speech about legacy and innovation. But beneath the polish, Kade noticed something else. She kept glancing toward him. Not often, not obviously, but enough that he knew it wasn't a coincidence. After the final round of applause, guests began to drift toward the terrace for dessert and champagne. Olivia disappeared briefly, then reemerged without her heels, carrying them in one hand. Kade was packing up his gear when she stopped beside him. There's a rooftop garden, she said. Very off-limits. Want to see it? He followed her up a narrow staircase, through a locked door that she opened with a key from her clutch. The garden was quiet, bathed in the glow of the city beyond. Potted trees framed the edges, and a long string of low lights crisscrossed overhead. It was the first place all night that didn't feel performative. I used to come up here when I was younger, Olivia said, sitting on a bench beside a row of lavender, to get away from the galas and speeches. And now I bring people I don't want to lose. Kade lowered himself beside her slowly. That's a lot to carry in one sentence. She looked down at the heels in her lap. I'm not great at subtle. I noticed. She turned toward him. I've been thinking about you since the lake. He didn't say anything. I know it sounds ridiculous, she continued. We barely knew each other. But it didn't feel like barely. It felt like something real. It was real, Kade said. Still is. There was a long pause. The city murmured below them, a soft hum of taxis and distant horns. I want to give you something, Olivia said. Kade frowned slightly. You already gave me more than I can return. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. This is a contract. Not for the photo. For a permanent position. He stared at her. What kind of position? My family's foundation is launching a creative initiative. You'd lead photography. Build the entire visual identity. Full salary. Full benefits. Studio access. No strings, no charity. And if I say no, I'll still want to see you. And Josie, this isn't a transaction, Kade. He looked down at the paper. She reached for his hand, her fingers cool against his. You don't have to answer tonight. I just needed you to know what I see when I look at you. His voice was quiet. What do you see? A man who makes the world beautiful, she said, even when it's trying to break him. He didn't respond. He just leaned forward and kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't uncertain. It was the kind of kiss that unraveled things: fear, doubt, distance, and left only what mattered. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. You're going to change everything, she whispered. Kade exhaled slowly. I think you already did. The following week unfolded like something Kade had never experienced: structured, surreal, and strangely hopeful. He took the job, not because it came with a polished contract or a salary that would finally allow him to stop counting coupons, but because when he looked into Olivia's eyes after reading the terms, he saw something steadier than money. He saw belief hers in him, and maybe, finally, his in himself. The Foundation's creative team welcomed him with cautious curiosity, but it didn't take long before that caution gave way to respect. Kade's eye for perspective, for emotion, wasn't something they'd seen before. His first concept of photo series capturing overlooked moments of generosity in the city earned immediate backing, and he was given full rein to choose his crew. He hired local talent. People like him. People who knew what it meant to stretch a dollar and still make something beautiful. Josie's new sitter, a retired art teacher named Marla, adored her and let her paint sunsets on the kitchen floor as long as she promised to clean up. Kade stopped waking up with a pit in his stomach. He started keeping real breakfast food in the house again. He bought Josie her own small camera, and she carried it everywhere. Olivia, when she wasn't traveling for meetings or overseeing the expansion of the Foundation's outreach programs, was simply present. With him. With Josie. With a quiet steadiness that slipped into the corners of their lives like warm light through drawn curtains. One Sunday morning, she arrived at their apartment unannounced, holding a brown paper bag that smelled like cinnamon and cloves. Josie opened the door and blinked up at her. You brought muffins? And apple cider, Olivia said, holding up a thermos. I heard someone at this address likes both. You heard right, Josie replied, stepping aside to let her in. Kade emerged from the bedroom, still in a threadbare hoodie, rubbing sleep from his eyes. You bribing my kid now? Only a little, Olivia said. I figured you'd be too polite to let me in unless I came bearing snacks. He took the thermos and handed her a coffee mug. You figured right. They sat on the couch, Josie curled up on the rug with a coloring book while Kade and Olivia talked. Not about work. Not about photos or gala invitations. About books they never finished. About places they wanted to visit but never had the time. About small memories, like how Olivia used to sneak out of piano lessons in middle school to sit under a tree and draw stick figures of her teachers. You ever think about what your life might have looked like if you weren't born into your family's name? Kate asked, passing her a mug. I used to, she said. But now I think more about what I want it to look like going forward. And she hesitated. Simpler. Not smaller. Just fuller. With people who don't expect me to be anything but myself. He didn't reply right away. Then he reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers slowly. You've got that, he said. She looked down at their hands. Do I? You do now. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. The following Friday, Olivia invited them to a private event at a children's hospital where the foundation was sponsoring an art wing. Josie wore a red dress and carried her camera like a reporter on assignment. Olivia stayed close, letting Kade document the evening while she painted faces and helped kids sculpt clay animals. Later, as they walked through the newly built wing, Josie tugged on Olivia's coat. Do you have a mom and dad? She asked. Olivia crouched beside her. I used to. My mom passed away when I was little. My dad, he's not around much. Josie nodded solemnly. Mine isn't either. But I have Daddy. And now you. Olivia blinked. Now me. Josie grinned. Well, you're here a lot. That means you count. Olivia glanced up at Kade, who was standing behind Josie, watching quietly. I'd like to count, Olivia said softly. If that's okay with you. Josie hugged her without answering. Olivia held her for a long time. That night, back at the apartment, Kade poured 2 glasses of wine while Olivia settled onto the balcony couch with a blanket around her shoulders. You ever think about leaving all this behind? He asked, handing her a glass. This, she asked. The foundation. The family name. The pressure. She sipped slowly before answering. I used to want to burn it all down. But now I want to rebuild it. Make it mean something. And does it? She looked at him. It does when you're part of it. He leaned against the rail, eyes on the skyline. You're a hard woman to keep up with, Olivia Darnell. Then stay close, she said. I won't run. He turned to face her. I'm not afraid of you running. I'm afraid I'll blink and this will all disappear. She stood, walked to him, and placed her hands on either side of his face. Then don't blink. The kiss that followed wasn't about urgency. It was a seal, a promise, quiet and deep and certain. 3 months later, they held a small ceremony in the rooftop garden of the Astoria Club, the same spot where she first told him she trusted him, the same place he first let himself believe he could belong. Josie walked ahead of them with a basket of flower petals and a camera dangling from her neck. Marla cried through the entire thing. There were no headlines. No press. Just 20 people, soft light, and music played by a cellist Olivia had once met on a subway platform. When the vows were done, and the rings were on their fingers, Kade whispered, You changed everything. Olivia brushed her thumb gently across his cheek. No, you just finally let yourself be seen. They danced under a sky full of stars and never looked back. It had been almost a year since the photo by the lake. Spring had returned to Woodrow, painting the trees with fresh green, the air soft and warm with the promise of beginnings. But this time, things were different. Kade wasn't chasing light for rent money or editing photos with Josie asleep on his shoulder. He was curating his own gallery, opening his name on the invitations, his work framed and lit on whitewashed brick walls. The gallery was nestled in the heart of Hudson Square, a space Olivia had quietly purchased months ago under a trust name and only revealed to him once the renovations were complete. Not as a gift, she knew Kade wouldn't accept it that way, but as a collaboration. A shared dream. Josie had insisted on naming it herself. She called it the third frame. When asked why, she'd said, because the first frame is what you see. The second is what you think. But the third is how you feel. Kade had looked at Olivia then, and she'd held his gaze like the answer had always been there. Tonight, the space buzzed with guests, artists, collectors, friends from the foundation, even a few reporters. But Kade barely noticed the crowd. He was watching Olivia. She stood on the far side of the room in a midnight blue dress that shimmered as she moved, her hair swept into a loose twist, a single sapphire drop hanging from one ear. Not because it matched the dress, but because Josie had picked it out when they went shopping together the week before. Kade made his way to her slowly, weaving through conversations and laughter, pausing only when someone stopped to compliment a piece. Every photo in the collection had a story, but none of them were staged. They were quiet moments, the way a woman clutched her coat against the wind near a bus stop, a child handing half a sandwich to a stranger, the curve of Olivia's hand resting on Josie's back as they walked down a sidewalk at dusk. When he reached her, Olivia turned toward him with a look that still had the power to pull everything else into silence. "You're glowing," she said. "I think that's just the lighting," he replied. "It's not," she said, setting her glass on a nearby table. "You look like the man you were always meant to be." He tilted his head slightly. "I don't feel that different." "You're not. You just stopped hiding." He glanced around the room. "It's overwhelming." "I know," she said, "but it's yours." They stepped away from the crowd and into the back office, where a small window overlooked the alleyway behind the building. It was quiet there, the hum of the city softened by brick and distance. Kade leaned against the frame. "Do you ever miss it?" "Miss what?" Olivia asked. "The way things were before. When you could disappear for a while." She crossed the room and rested her hands on his chest. "I don't need to disappear anymore. I have this. I have you. And Josie. That's all I ever wanted." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "You know, I still wake up some mornings expecting it all to vanish." "It won't," she whispered. "You built this with your own hands." There was a knock on the door before it opened slightly. Josie poked her head in, her curls bouncing. She was wearing a white dress with a denim jacket and had a camera slung around her neck. It had pink stickers on the lens cap. "They're cutting the cake," she announced. "And someone said your picture's going to be on the cover of a magazine." "It's not confirmed," Kade said. "But you're going to be famous," Josie said with a grin. "And I'm going to be your assistant." "I already took 3 pictures of people kissing." Olivia laughed. "That's a dangerous job." "I know," Josie said proudly. "But I'm brave." Kade held out his hand, and she grabbed it without hesitation. Olivia took Josie's other hand, and together, the 3 of them returned to the gallery floor. Later that night, after the last guest had trickled out and the staff had begun to stack empty glasses and close-up, Kade stood in the middle of the room, looking at the photo that had started it all. It was framed in the center of the back wall. Olivia, standing by the lake, her back to the wind, her eyes half in shadow. It wasn't labeled. It didn't need to be. She came to stand beside him, her arm brushing his. "Still your favorite?" she asked. He nodded. "Because it's the moment I realized I wasn't alone." Olivia turned toward him. "We should go. Josie's falling asleep on a bench." He smiled. "She gets that from you." They gathered their things, said goodnight to the staff, and stepped out into the cool night air. Outside, their car was waiting. Not a town car or a limousine, just a dark green SUV with a car seat in the back and a bag of crackers on the floor. Kade held the door while Olivia climbed in beside Josie, who was already dozing off, her camera pressed to her chest like a stuffed animal. When he slid into the driver's seat, Olivia reached over and took his hand. "I never thought I'd find this," she said softly. "This. Peace. Love. A home." He looked at her, his jaw tightening slightly with emotion. It was never about finding it. It was about being brave enough to build it. She leaned in and kissed him, slow and sure. When she pulled back, her eyes were glassy. "I want to marry you again," she whispered. He blinked. "You do?" "Somewhere small. Just us. And Josie. Maybe under that tree by the lake. No gowns. No speeches. Just a promise." He squeezed her hand. "Then let's do it." The following weekend, they stood beneath the same tree where Olivia had once been photographed like a secret. Josie held a bouquet of wildflowers she'd picked herself and wore a crown of daisies Olivia had woven that morning. They exchanged vows with bare feet in the grass and no one else around. No audience. No flashbulbs. Just the wind, the water, and words that belonged only to them. Afterward, they lay on a blanket by the lake, Josie napping between them, and watched the sky change color. Kade brushed a strand of hair from Olivia's face. "You're not a girl running from her name anymore. And you're not a man surviving the world alone." "Feels like a good ending," he said. Olivia smiled. "Feels like a beginning." And together, they watched the light shift over the water, knowing they'd never need to run from anything again.